In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a custom length drawer bench like this using just basic tools. We had this space in our dining room that would be perfect for kind of a window seat drawer bench, and I could use the extra storage. So I'm using a pocket hole jig by Craig to make my joints. I've been using this system for about 10 years and have been very happy with it. You can use a hand pocket hole jig like I'm doing here. These run between $100 and $150 and they work awesome. This exact Craig jig I've had for about 10 years and it's still going strong and hasn't failed me yet, so I couldn't recommend it more. Besides drilling the holes for joining plywood together, the Craig jig is great for like edge-to-edge joints, say you're making a tabletop or something like that. All right, time for assembly. So this project, the pieces looked really small when they came in the mail, but it is gigantic. So I had to do a little bit of strategic thinking about how to make it all work out on my small workspace. I'm using 1 1/4 inch pocket hole screws, and I'm just hiding those on the underside of the bench. So if you will, this bench is upside down and I'm building it upside down with the pocket holes hidden underneath. It'll all make sense, I promise. Okay, so that there is just half of the drawer bench. If I could do this again, I think I would have built this in 2 separate pieces and then just set them next to each other because it would be a lot easier to handle. But I made it work, and honestly, it was an awesome feeling to be able to tackle such a gigantic project all by myself. So the plywood is really nice because it's super square and it's easy to work with. It's really precise cuts. The front edge is already edge banded, so I don't have to worry about a face frame, and I don't have to worry about like 1 by 12 boards cupping on me or not being deep enough. It's designed to work this way. This is how a professional cabinet maker would make a drawer bench like this for you. Okay, so I gotta find some more room in my shop. It's not every day I make a project this gigantic, but I could definitely see making some like big built-in bookshelves, which would take up a lot of room and space as well. So it's pretty exciting to see a project like this go together so quickly. Literally to this point, I just had to drill the pocket holes on all of the shelf ends, 4 per end, and then attach it to the ends in the dividers. Super simple to this point. Okay, so now if you think about the plywood as, say, the skeleton, you still need like ligaments or tendons to tie everything together. So I call them base supports, and they're exactly the same length as your shelf boards, and I just screw them in for some rigidness and to tie everything in. It's kind of like the framework that is going to give some lateral support, keep your project square, and sometimes it can be used decorative too. So you might see it as a footer or, you know, a header in the front of your piece. And I just pocket hold all these together. So another reason I love using the pocket holes is, see how I'm joining those boards in kind of like a T shape? How would you do that if you were just screwing or nailing? It's very difficult to do without the Craig jig, so I highly recommend it. And once I added these base supports, it really created some rigidness in the project and made it very solid. All right, I felt like the seat, since this is upside down, need a little bit more support. So I'm putting these 1 by 2s underneath the seat with just, I'm using the pocket hole screws again, and this is going to provide some additional support for the seat. Remember, everything's upside down here. All right, time to add some drawer slides. So I always think in terms of where the screw is going to go on my drawer slide, not necessarily where is the drawer slide going to go, but where are the screws going to go. So I'll draw a line on my project where I want to start my screws and line that up. See, notice the drawer slides, all the screws are in a line. I have a really good video on installing drawers, and it was like 12 minutes of talking about drawers. So if you want more information on that, I'll leave that link in the description. I cut my drawer sides, usually it's to the same length as my drawer slides. So I think these are 20-inch drawer slides, so they should be 20 inches long. I don't know why I cut these a little longer. Maybe I was getting a little bit greedy about my storage, but notice I'm installing the cabinet member of the drawer slide inset 3/4 of an inch. This is to allow the drawer to be inset 3/4 of an inch. After I install the drawer, I'll put a drawer face on it that'll sit flush to the front. I do my drawer slides a little different. For the first one, I'll attach the drawer member just to the side without actually building the box and make sure everything's sliding good and I'm happy with it. And then I'll take a measurement between the two drawer sides to get my drawer front and back box measurements. Go ahead and cut that and fit it and make sure it all slides and then attach it. There's definitely faster ways of doing this, but I find this method gives me a really nice sliding drawer slide on the very first try. And if you're frustrated with math, what happens if you are using an off-brand drawer slide and it needs a little bit less or a little bit more clearance, or you're using 1/2-inch plywood for your drawer box? It can all get really confusing really quickly. So doing it this way takes all the confusion out. You literally just cut and measure as you go, and then once you get the first drawer built, you can go into production mode and build all the remaining drawers, given that the spacing in between is the same, which is true in this project. So the first one always takes a little bit more time, and I want to make sure it works good. There's nothing worse than a drawer that doesn't slide quite right. And once I got it sliding right, I'm going to add the bottom on it. So I'm using 1/4-inch plywood, and you can cut this on a table saw if you have one. Another way is a circular saw on a piece of foam or raised up on a couple of scrap wood pieces. Cutting 1/4-inch plywood is super simple because it's so thin, it just cuts so easily, and you don't have to be perfectly accurate here because it's just a drawer bottom. It's not like the framework of your bench. I'm going to start working on the baseboard here. So I'm just using 5 1/4-inch tall baseboard molding that's left over from my house. Just cutting it to fit right now, and I've got everything turned on upside down, so I'll figure out how to flip that over and get this baseboard on. I like to scribe my baseboard instead of just measuring it because I want it to be perfect. It really is impactful on the project. This was probably the hardest part of this whole project, is getting this 10-foot long piece of baseboard on the bottom of this project by myself and make sure it looks good and isn't sagging anywhere and is completely square all the way down. Okay, so the end pieces are really easy. I just kind of cut that 45 miter on the front, scribe the end, and nail it in place. I like a tall baseboard because that means when you open the drawer up, it doesn't hit your foot, and it's easier to clean around. And then if you're not using a drawer, I also like a tall baseboard because it elevates that bottom shelf up so you're not reaching down quite as far. But it does take up some space, so you do lose some storage. So there's always a trade-off. All right, the drawer faces are just 1x12s, and I'm just gonna nail them a couple of places, tack them in place with the H-ink gap all the way around, and then pull the drawer out and further secure with some screws. And yes, you can use the Craig screws here too. All right, so I'm gonna put primer and paint on it after a good sanding, and then drill the holes for the handles and figure out someone to help me haul this up the stairs. I don't even want to share with you how Grace and I managed to get this in place, but this thing is huge. I think this is one of the biggest pieces of furniture that I've ever made entirely by myself. So I'm super, super proud of how it turned out. There's a ton of storage in there, and I mean, just think all this was on my dining room table a couple days ago. Now it's all neatly hidden. The other kind of cool thing is if you could build your base to fit a cushion, say you wanted a day bed with drawers under it, you could build this to fit the day bed size. So a lot of different options on how you want to top it as well. But we're super excited about it and glad that we can share the how-to. Make sure you click the link in the description for more details on how I built this and how to build it yourself. Thanks guys for watching. We'll see you next week.